What is up, everybody? Where am I? Welcome to the Creed of Crypto. This is Broke Boy Crypto along here with Crypto Ewok, welcoming you in to another show. We got a big one for you tonight. Man, the pDAI drama, I mean, to say the least, drama is probably really the appropriate word here because seemingly nobody has any idea what's going on, even though everybody likes to pretend. Am I there? Do you hear me?
Yep. You muted yourself when you did that.
Yeah, everybody pretends to know exactly what's going on. Nobody, I think, really does, but that's kind of what's going on. It's been a crazy last couple of days, so that will be one of our main topics. I mean, and actually, it was going to be even before we got all kinds of weird shit happening tonight. That was even before the Maria dev stuff happened yesterday. We were already going to talk about it. There was a lot to talk about. Now we have all this stuff happening. There's a lot happening, and we have so many angles I'm about to get into. This is going to be be a full show tonight. We have good news. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this, Ewok, but of course the camera goes. I'll show you what. But the Fed today announced rate cuts will be coming soon. I think they're going to pivot shortly. They didn't make any moves today as far as what to do with the rates or anything. But we got bullish times coming ahead. We had ETH get back over the pathetic what's had become resistance, back over 2K today. It'll probably just fall right back down tomorrow. I guess we'll see. But who knows? Maybe things starting to get bullish. I don't know. DJ Moonboy with a super chat. Hey, man, we appreciate it. You are the man. You're always here with us. We appreciate everything you do for the channel. But welcome in, everybody. Hit the like on your way in to support Real DeFi. And Ewok, how are you doing this evening? Will I fix my camera and figure out how the hell we get this stream going good?
Well, another day, another dollar. I'm doing well. I'm trying to stay away from the back and forth stuff, trying to follow along as best as possible, but yet stay out of the drama. And until things kind of settle down here, just not really get too involved. But other than that, man, I'm doing good. It's part of that. It's part of that cycle, man, and we're hopefully going to be out of it soon. But if it's prolonged at all, well, it is what it is. We can't control that.
Yeah, it's been an insane few days. I mean, this is just showing you like the last 48 hours in PulseChain is just what it can be like being in crypto. We'll get to that specific part here in a minute, but hit us up in the chat tonight. Give us your thoughts and opinions, whatever you want to say, because we have people again on both sides of the aisle regarding pDAI and the stuff going on PulseChain that are very rooted and very convicted, but I'm very wary of anybody who acts like that in any direction and anything in life. So we'll get into that. But let's just start with the boring stuff. Bitcoin and Ethereum. We'll get through this pretty quickly. But we have BTC up over about 85K now. A nice little bounce up of where it's been over the last few weeks. Really kind of normal, healthy move back up at 86K now. ETH, again, that is what I and all of you and everybody in the whole goddamn world seemingly are more happy about, that it's over 2K miraculously, up 7% on the day, and its ratio against BTC is still dog poop. But could this be a turning of the tide? Also, we'll get into this a little bit later in coinciding with the corrupt SEC and their dealings with PulseChain, but they dropped the case against Ripple today. Ripple has to respond as to whether they want it dropped because they could still gain something. I don't know, whatever. But we will see Ripple up on the day, which is good. I mean, like other altcoins moving up is good for the whole altcoin index, but it's really Ethereum that we need to see move up. So what do you make of what we're seeing on these couple moves here? What do you think about the, Fed news today? It looks like we have kind of smooth sailing coming soon and hopefully quantitative easing coming soon, which is what we need really more than anything to get this bull market to pop off. So what do you make of all of it?
Yeah, the typical play out of suppression, and it looks like there is some pretty good strength happening right now, especially with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the leader of what's going on. It usually responds first to Fed cuts or hikes or however, whatever decides to happen. This is usually the first leading indicator of what's to come. And then everything else kind of trails along because of the way things are tied together with bonded liquidity and such like that. So, I mean, it is nice to see this several day small uptrend here at Bitcoin. You still have to watch what's going on in the background. You really have to, watch what people do, not what they say. And there are still some big institutions that are buying the shit out of Bitcoin right now. as well as Ethereum. You know, you've got Trump's group as well still buying more Ethereum, and um, you know, taking advantage of the discounted prices. So yeah, I
Mhm.
don't. I think it all looks pretty good. You know, you're seeing the uptrend. You did see, you know, you mentioned it here. The ratio is still crap, but let's take a look and see what it actually is. 0.0247. So, you know,
Mhm.
this as high as we've been in, you know,
It's
about,
actually pretty good. Yeah.
yeah, relatively speaking to where it has been down around 2.1, we're almost back up to 2.5. So, you know, it's looking positive. Hopefully things can, you know, stay the course at least, and we get a nice little rally out of here.
Amen to that. And we again on the broader things as far as the market, the Fed, great news today with it sounds like we're going to get some quantitative easing, or at least the end to quantitative tightening is official. Cuts coming probably this year. I mean that will be something. And you know, we're going to see money printing happening, and you know the global money supply of the cycle is still intact. I mean, we're going to see that happening. That really, as much as everybody like in the Pulse Chain ecosystem, or you know, all the alts are down. We just had a clip video that came out the other day about that, showing how everything was really down. I mean, everybody in all these altcoin communities and stuff, that's why they're hurting. We need liquidity to come in. We need Ethereum to move up as a result. And I'm hoping that we're inching towards that now. It seems like we are at a pivot point, literally, with the Fed kind of pivoting here. And like you said, major players have been buying Ethereum for quite some time. So I'm hoping this is a slow move up. So we shall see. Do you have any final thoughts on that stuff?
No, not really. Like I said, I just, you got to hang in there. That's what happens. These bottoms are really the true test of everybody's emotional fortitude at this point. So just
Yeah.
hang in there.
Well, we're going to get to the fortitude you've probably had to have the last 5 days or so, because it has been an absolute goddamn whirlwind within Pulse Chain. I don't even remember the stuff from Friday that I just saw in here. So let's look at the prices. That's usually what you can look at first to tell you the news. So we got Pulse at pretty much 4 zeros and a 3. It's right below it, basically hanging out right at all-time low. It's just hanging out right at that support. It did wick down below that yesterday, which we're going to get to shortly. We've got Pulse X pretty much at parity, been the strongest token really in the ecosystem. 40265. Inc is down to $1.62. We have Hex way back down now to 007 Agent 53, and eHex. It's not on Go Pulse, so I'm looking on here. It is 0021 right now. So
Well,
yeah, things are absolutely butchered. The main token of the ecosystem, Pulse, is at again all-time lows, triple bottoming basically in this wave. We had, and we'll get into these individual topics, but some short-term catalyst for the last few days was that the SEC, which we thought was going to just leave, be done with this because they lost so badly. They had 20 days to file to see if they could amend their complaint. It's not an appeal or anything like that. The judge made a ruling. The judge, I feel like we have to reset this. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't even get into this yet because I'm getting too far into the main topic. Let's just cover the prices and we'll get to the catalyst for it. So the SEC
sure.
thing happened Friday. That created some volatility. And then, of course, the huge sell-off of Atropa and pDAI and Maria from Atropa yesterday, live streaming quite literally, selling off huge amounts. Was it a troll? Was it real? What is going on with him? I have no idea. But we'll get even more to those stories. But just technically looking at the chart, which really is the most important thing, I think with all of this, including pDAI, I think that's what people should be doing, is more so focusing on charts instead of sleuth activity and all that stuff. But yeah, what do you make of Pulse? I mean, we're triple bottoming here at this point. It's really the most important chart to look at right now, I think. So what do you make here?
Well, we actually quadruple bottomed and then broke through.
Right.
So yeah, we've done more than triple bottom. We actually broke through the bottom. It's not really a seal, the floor. We broke through the floor. It did, respond at about 2.8. Yeah, about 2.803 is what it looks like. And it has kind of rebounded since. We still haven't pulled up to that support level that was like 3.1, 3.18 or roughly in that area. But it is close. It just it's creeping back and forth right now between just right at 3, essentially. It keeps going 3.0 and then 2.99. So, there is something to say for it, at least holding that level. It was one of the next levels that I was kind of talking about. I think 2.8 was the level that I mentioned last week, was just a guess without breaking out the Fibonacci tool. But it's nice to see that there has been a new floor somewhat made. We need a couple green candles though to confirm that before it decides to go even further. And I think the market kind of needs to decide what it's going to do about these other coins too. So yeah, there's a lot of indecision right now by the looks of this, and it could hold, but it could keep going further if there's further uncertainty.
It seems like that area is kind of a magnet, because even after the gigantic sell-off and all the drama from yesterday, that wick was horrible for about 2 hours, basically, and then it came right back up into this region. So, I mean, we are looking at the daily, which that may not be. I mean, I know we're doing it to highlight what's happening in the short term, but if you put it on the weekly, I don't think there really has been any kind of new low put in, because it's just, so far has happened intraday and was just for a couple hour long period. So maybe we did by looking at that. I can't.
Well, yeah, it's definitely below. It hasn't closed yet. Yeah. It's not a closed candle, but the wick is definitely as far down as we've ever been. Even back whenever it first launched. Well, I guess this was August that it did that first dip. But
yeah, that was the SEC.
That was the SEC. Yeah.
Yeah, saving investors one step at a time.
Yeah, right.
The good news is here, I mean, yeah, this is maddening, frustrating, hard to get through, stressful and stuff like that. But keep in mind, I don't want to look at it necessarily because we've got way too much to get to. But PulseX has done phenomenally. I mean, like, its chart has been fantastic. It's run up, of course, against Pulse. So this is one of those things. We were going to talk about this a couple of weeks ago, but just, it again, obviously lately that doesn't look great. But I mean, it's been a slow trend up. And of course, we've talked many times, its chart against Pulse is fantastic. So the thing is, you're probably hurting more at this exact moment if you've chosen to only DCA into Pulse, which why you would do, I have no idea. I don't think there's really anybody that did do just that. I really don't think since the beginning of the ecosystem, there were too many people that would have been like, yeah, the number one most valuable token is going to be the gas token. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've DCA'd into it heavily, and maybe a third, most people do a third Hex, third PulseChain, a third PulseX, and then of course people mess around with other stuff. But if you've been DCAing into these things evenly, especially PulseX hardcore, you're feeling bad, but you're not feeling as if you just DCA'd into PulseChain because it's run up against it, obviously. So
sure. Yeah, against PulseChain it has. Against the dollar, it's pretty stagnant, so to say. Let's take a look at that again. It's at least flat. It hasn't done a whole lot of bad. I mean, it stayed within this range of well, that was the sacrifice that it touched.
Yeah, that was a year ago, probably last March when we ran up. I think that's what that would have been, probably.
Yeah, March of 24. Yep.
Yeah. Seems like a decade ago.
So since March, it has definitely stayed, in a pretty big channel, anywhere between 4 zeros and a 1.5, and all the way up to 4 zeros and a 6.2. So it's stayed within that channel. It hasn't tanked too badly, and you could have made some moves, I guess, if you were a trader. Obviously, we don't recommend trying to play these dips like that too much, because it's very easy to get left behind by doing that. But if you do know what you're doing and you know what technical analysis to look at, you could have made some nice gains on some of these swings.
Yeah, for sure. But holding long and strong. We same story. We need ETH to turn around. I mean, it's not just us; it's everybody in the altcoin market. So
yep, for sure.
That's where we are with prices right now. Now let's get to the news that occurred yesterday. That is what we're going to kind of center the show around, our main topic, and what's kind of putting the prices where they are. Although they did move up from yesterday. So yesterday, Maria, aka I believe, doxed name is James Osborne. I don't know if that's definitely true, but Maria Rael, whatever it is, the whole name, the pDAI dev, or worked for NASA but didn't really, wrote a paper about it once or something like that. There's just so many odd things. I don't know what to believe about the guy. I don't know what to believe about any of his intentions. And really, I don't think I really care that much. I think people are reading into it too much. But anyway, so factually, he does rotate out, sell a bunch of Atropa into Ethereum, sells pDAI into Ethereum. And I was chilling out, made a little trip to the little boys' room, pulled out my phone, as you do. And I'm like, oh, just look at the prices real quick. And yeah, Pulse at new all-time lows. Everything was absolutely bleeding like hell out of nowhere. And like probably anybody, I had a short-term panic real quick. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And you dig into it and stuff like that. And what I think is unfortunate is most people in that moment take to Twitter and just start posting, regardless of what it is, with whatever information it seems is right in front of them, highly emotional and all that stuff, and I think the best thing in those moments, whenever you're seeing price movements like that, is to figure out what's going on slowly and to not react. Like I literally just went for a walk with music on and was like trying to figure out what was going on. You know what I mean? I think that's what you really need to do to really, figure out what's going on. But anyway, what actually happened? So Maria said that the people behind it, very weird stuff. So he had a live stream, fired up a live stream of him selling and all these things, rotating it into ETH, saying potentially he'll bring it back in later. He says the people behind DAI are criminals out to get him. I'm not making this up. There's screenshots of it. It was in his chat. Or they broke into his aunt's house in Kentucky and stole guns or something like that. I don't know. This is just what I was getting out of it. He says Atropa is too tied to pDAI to expose, claims that Richard Hart has no involvement with pDAI. Sells half of his stack and says he's done for now. The whole ecosystem drops, obviously, because pDAI, we had that great stream with Axis that time, the web of pDAI, like how it's tied to so many different things. So that's why everything came down in the short term. So we have that. And then we have pDAI completely retrace it and come right back up. And, we can't even begin to get into like the sleuth nature of people from both sides of this. 9 Iron Capital has been an awesome pDAI guy from the beginning. We have Martin Storyteller taking the opposite end of all that and arguing, oh, here's another guy minting pDAI out of nowhere and selling it. And other people are saying that, well, it's because of this bad debt clearing up and blah, blah, blah. So just so many things back and forth. And then today, which we'll get to in a moment, Richard fires off a tweet. We'll read it in a minute here. That everybody's claiming they know exactly what he's meaning by it, and pDAI sells off again. So we'll get to that. There's just way too many things. So first off, what do you make Ewok? If you want to get rid of the Pulse thing there.
That's the pDAI chart.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Okay. So what do you make of this stuff from Maria yesterday anyway? Like what
a lot of confusion, a lot of insanity for him to just sit there and do it live. Yeah, I just showed that. He was also blaming Sami.
Yeah.
But I guess if there's a way to prove that you're exiting, it's a good way to show it. There wasn't any audio that I could hear when I tuned in. It was just a bunch of chit chat with sales happening essentially. It just confused me even more. So, I was on the anti-pDAI side, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm hearing enough things that this is Richard. So I kind of jumped on board, and now I'm leaning back to the other side, thinking that there's something bad and nefarious going on. The reason I think that is when you look at the numbers, $4 million has been extracted from this chain in the last 4 months. And it hasn't been put somewhere else. Like, it's not like it's staying in the Pulse chain. It's gone. It's over on Ethereum. And they're continuing to mint more. There's some sort of exploit that somebody has that is quite concerning. And people are still buying. People are there. I was just in a Spaces. It was a Twitter Spaces right before I jumped on here, listening to those guys, and they were having a good conversation. It was a little bit of both sides. It was more of what the exploit is and what's happening, and what how to stop it. How do we stop the value detractor essentially. And you know, their big thing is, all right, what we need to do is remove liquidity for this because it's pulling the price of everything else down because of that web that we just talked about a few minutes ago when, you know, Axis was showing us the web. So there were calls put out to Randy Holarski with that group of there's the what's it called? I forget what. Do you remember the name of their like value token or like the combined pool?
I was reading this post we're about to do from DeFi about this stuff, so
okay. Well, either way,
yeah.
you weren't paying attention.
No,
that's
wasn't.
fine.
Sorry,
it's fine. So I think we need to put a stop to the bleeding at least before, you know, anything more happens. Try and get people to understand that there are bots running that make it look like it is still very active, and it is. There's buying and selling constantly, but apparently there are a lot of bots that are doing that trading to give it that volume. You know, I think we need to put a stop to the bleeding, the value extraction, and stop giving them an exit at least first before anything gets decided on what happens. Is my opinion. That's kind of where we're at though at this point.
To get a little bit more information on, let's actually read that tweet that we were both sharing this morning from DeFi Zion. That's what it is. That I know I sent you. Because it would seem like a pretty good write-up. It's like a few different tweets. I'll try to speed through it here. So he says, what's actually happening with pDAI and PMaker? This thread is to provide clarity on what's been going on the last few days, blah, blah, blah. I'll split this thread into multiple pieces. Okay. We'll go down to the first one below that. So who is the 5996 dev team? The 5996 dev team we have been following since the address was created. This address is directly associated with 29AC and other addresses. You can read this for yourselves too, guys, but to a more stable tracking this since last year, which were used to facilitate the pDAI and PUSD 1-to-1 ratio, which we know that exists, leading to a more stable pDAI price. We will never have a definitive answer as to whether this dev team is a good or bad, but more evidence suggests they are a good one due to their favorable actions. Two, how is 5996 minting? This is a little bit longer than I realized.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts to it that expanded.
Maybe rather than read the entire thing, let me go down to the last part here, just the fifth one. So he says the 5996 is using one of the many vaults used to mint the initial pDAI supply. Coincidentally, about half of the vaults remain independently owned by the devs who minted the initial supply. RH is rumored to own most of that. However, a portion of the vaults had remained owned by the DSS proxy actions contracts, which allowed his dev team to acquire them. I wonder why the team who minted the initial supply didn't retain complete ownership of all of them. Strange. Maybe for this exact reason, we'll never know. Lots of talk and rumors about 5996 being a bad actor. To be 100% honest, we will probably never know, but in my opinion and based on what I see, I think not. However, if he is a bad actor, RH is in control of the PMaker and can temporarily stop liquidations. Why hasn't he? What's happening with PMaker? No faces can be attached, but it's up for you to decide. RH will never come out and give us the straight answer we're looking for, so we must pick up the pieces. The pegging continues. He says, enjoy the show. So what do you make? I know you skimmed this as well, and I do want to get into the Richard angle of this because I completely and utterly agree with what he just said, that RH is not ever going to give us an answer, and I think people are overreacting likely to one of his tweets earlier. So what do you make of what he's saying here, though?
Well, I think because of the maker contract that gets essentially cloned, and when there's a fork, they're the same ones in control of what's going on over here. Same wallet addresses, same everything, and I'm not sure why that's not being talked about. And you know, Richard had a big portion of DAI, but I don't know that he had part of the maker. The maker part of it is, I think, what's more important than the DAI itself. So that Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions for me and stuff that's kind of way above my head and understanding who addresses are, who they belong to, good or bad actors. But you still go back to that point where they're extracting $4 million of value to Ethereum. It doesn't seem like a step that Richard would do. He would definitely keep it on chain somewhere, and if not, what? Like, I'm just, the only thing that it would be used to bridge to Ethereum for was to pump eHex. If he was going to pump one of his coins, I don't see him sending it somewhere else to pump anything else. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm still kind of stuck on that part of why there's been so much extraction to another chain that is not his. That's kind of where I stand.
But I'll say this, because there's just so many angles to this. But as far as like actually buying or investing in pDAI, which we've talked about before, and yeah, you were one of the skeptics. I think you pretty much converted when you did around the time when a lot of like skeptics started to, you know what I mean? And it was good of you, I think, because you started to look into things and educate yourself and stuff. I did, I think, a little bit before that time, and I still fully believe that something is at play here. And as far as the inner workings of it and the sleuthing, it's always going to be above my head. Like, I'm not going to double down and pretend that I know something that I don't, which unfortunately is what 90% of the people talking about this on Twitter are doing. Like, they are dunking with every move in either direction. There's people out there sitting waiting for something to officially happen with this to run victory laps around it. We saw it yesterday. And then just a minute ago, talking about the Richard angle of it, if you want to pull that tweet up, that was the first one I would have sent you earlier. So he, in typical Richard fashion, does one of those decoding tweets where it's like, well, what is he talking about here? And if you follow this guy and you read his tweets, which I imagine most people in here do, you usually know that it's not always just taken on its face. Most people are taking this one on its face, though. So he said, one of the stupidest things in crypto is when people pretend a coin was founded by someone or secretly supported by someone. It sounds stupid as, yeah, man, Satoshi is actually behind this coin. Telling the truth is better than lying. Tell the truth. Everybody's retweeting it. There you go. Definitively, Richard Hart is not behind pDAI. He has nothing to do with it. There's people just being really weird out there. I guess there's no point really focusing on that. I guess that's what happens during red candles. Like, there's people out there that I believe have created a pDAI conference that are now retweeting this, dunking on it, saying, you are all wrong. So I don't understand the range of emotions. In no way do I take this tweet by Richard at face value. I don't think at all that.
Why?
The people that are out there saying, there you go, you have it. He's definitely referencing pDAI, and he's saying specifically that he has nothing to do with it. He's never had anything to do with it, full stop. I don't believe that. You and I have had this argument before about the pegging theory, it getting to $1, whether or not he'd be involved. And I have said every single time, you can go back to the other streams when we've had the arguments, he will never admit to being behind this, because it is a risk. Like, it's not just like, yes, he's somebody who likes to brag when his things do well and retweet, and he's posted the pDAI chart many times. But this is a whole other endeavor. Like, this is something that is never before seen, never before done in crypto. And if you really are going to be like Satoshi in that form of things anyway, you're not going to say like, yep, I did it. Here's what I did, step by step by step. We've even seen the old streams of him where it seems like he's talking about a stable coin on PulseChain, saying, oh, I have some tricks up my sleeve. Blah, blah, blah. Like, he's not going to come out and say, like, let me connect the dots for you. Here's what happened. He's never going to do that. So I take this more as like, I still side that he likely has a lot of involvement here, and I don't think the chart is an accident. I don't know what it is specifically, how he's doing any of it. I'm not going to say that. But for people just taking this on face value, like, yep, he's talking about, I think he is referencing what's going on with pDAI. But for people just saying, like, he doesn't have anything to do with it, so why don't you all shut up? I think they're missing it. I just think they're missing it.
So here's my big thing is, for the longest time we were saying, well, Richard showed the chart many times, but he hasn't brought it up. He hasn't said anything about it. Now that he's now that he's said something not really directly about it, I think he's beating around the bush about it. Now it's like, well, he can't really admit it if he did. So we either take him for face value what he says and the things that he says, or I just don't think he wouldn't. If it was, he wouldn't have said anything. Like I think it would have been one of those comments to just let it go and not say anything. I never said I was. I never said I wasn't. This is kind of him saying, stop lying, tell the truth. Because people were saying it's definitely Richard, and that's how I took this whole thing. So, I just find it interesting how for the longest time we say, well, he hasn't commented on it, he hasn't said anything. That was more thinking that it was him. Now he's saying, well, telling the truth is better than lying, so tell the truth. I don't know.
Well, he quite literally has promoted the chart maybe 7 or 8 times at this point.
Because he likes things that go up. And
right. Well, why hasn't PTGC ever been shown by him? That's done way better that's done fantastic too. I mean, there's many things that he could have shown. He's shown pDAI specifically. Like, name me the other. He's shown the PWBTC one too. Name me the other stuff that he has shown charts of on PulseChain. Pulse, PulseX, Hex, Inc. What else?
Well,
pDAI, but what else?
These are also forked coins that aren't somebody else's project. So I don't know. I think he also at one point was trying to entice people to come over and say, hey, you might have some DAI from Ethereum. Get over here and play this game. And I think that could be another reason why he was showing the chart. Not that it was his, not that it was, but it was a forked token, just like the Bitcoin side, the Pulse Wrap Bitcoin. Again, no one had control of it, and we all know Richard holds a lot of Bitcoin, whether it was wrapped or not before the fork. Again, who knows? But he's not one to promote something that somebody else made, but he will promote a forked token, I would believe. But I think this is him coming out pretty much saying, listen, guys, this isn't me.
I disagree. Oh, yeah, I agree, but not because it's not him, but because I would never cop to it. I would never admit it. There's too many implications. There's too many things that could happen to you. Plus, we're going to get to the SEC bullshit. Like,
silence is your best option in that case. Then I think,
and exactly, and I think he has been. He's shown the chart. That's pretty much it. And the other thing that people are doing, like, I just love how people can make an argument from one thing when the exact same argument could be made from the other side. So he had, until this tweet, he had been silent about the stuff that happened with Maria and selling off yesterday. And somebody said, see, Richard's dead radio silent on this. That means he knows it's a scam and doesn't want to give it any notoriety at all. This guy tweets out scams all the goddamn time, brags about how he has no involvement in them. See, I told you, I warned you. Why wouldn't he be lighting it up with something that's on his own chain that's done however many X's it's done on his own chain that is affecting his entire chain? Like, well, wouldn't he be calling that out left and right and get rid of the bad actors and stuff like that? Instead, he just puts this tweet out there. I'm not going to say.
But would that be considered price manipulation on his own chain while the SEC is actively looking at him?
Which part? What would constitute that? What do you mean?
Telling people that it's a scam.
Well, he calls other things, well, maybe on his own chain, I guess. Yeah, I guess
this is his own chain. So you've got to be careful what you say. He can call shit on Ethereum a scam all day long.
Right.
Without he doesn't control Ethereum, right? He doesn't control those projects. He has nothing to do with it other than being an investor just like everybody else. So yeah, I don't know. I do believe there would be some implications for him to call out something on his chain that somebody could probably come after him for, you know, he's smart, he's careful, he's methodical when he does things. Obviously, he's gotten around a lot of regulation, pretty bulletproof so far, because he knows what to say, what not to say, and there could be more reason for not being very precise about calling anything in particular out when he could say, well, no, that was meant to be something else, because he didn't mention it by name. So
Right.
I
I
don't
think
know.
there's a reason that he didn't. Yeah. I mean, here's the people are just way too dug in on either side of this. As far as actually investing in it, I mean, you and I have both done so, and
Yeah.
we've always done it. Sami always talks about like lottery tickets. We've always done it as a very small, insignificant portion of anything that we hold. Like, I know there are people out there, if it would seem so on social media and stuff, that have put everything into this ecosystem,
Yes.
and into the Atropa, pDAI, teddy bear, like that's all they've been doing, and then all these other derivatives on Atropa. We've never ever done anything like that. But there were accounts that turned into like Atropa accounts, a year and a half. They're like 2023, actually, like summer 2023 is when this was really taking off, and their whole identity went into that for a long time. So I'm not going to get rooted down and claim that I know something one way or the other. I want to have exposure to it still. I do still. I definitely didn't sell anything on this news or anything.
Right.
I didn't buy anything either. I'm just chilling out, kind of letting the dust settle here. And I do think that's a good idea probably for anybody is, regardless of what you're doing, just let things chill out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not buying, I'm not selling. I'm definitely not buying until the value extraction stops. And what I would like to see is some of the liquidity get pulled so these people can't send it somewhere else. There was the guy that was in that spaces was chatting and said, just think what $4 million could have done to the core tokens. It will put basically everything back to almost sacrifice value. There's a calculator out there that tells you how much value injected what it would do to the price and the price of everything else, because they're so bonded by liquidity. It would have put both PulseChain and PulseX damn near at sack value with $4 million. And that was how much they've extracted. So just knowing that alone, it worries me that something nefarious is going on. And, until that stops, I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but I hope people stop giving them more opportunity to extract value for now, at least until this thing shakes out or we figure out a little bit more of who it is or what it is. But anyway, that's my take.
I don't think there's any going back into Pandora's box with pDAI. I mean, like, it is, regardless of what is happening, people are going to be saying it's going to peg to $1, even as a meme to the very end. So that's one thing for sure that is never going to stop. And actually, I think is kind of also a bullish thing. But as I said, I'm not going to be aping into it, and I never really was anyway. But I think we all need to just chill out. And honestly, my biggest thing is just the people that are on either side of the argument, acting like they know everything and constantly out there to dunk on people and get in arguments. It's just, you've got an agenda to begin with, and you have to understand that when you present things like that, the only people that are going to listen to you are just people who already agree with you and aren't really thinking anyway. You know what I mean? So
sure. Well, there's a lot of big investors that want to see their bag, explode. And, another thing that I found out that I didn't know is that you can't collateralize somebody else's tokens. Essentially, you have to collateralize your own tokens. Well, there are people out there with millions or billions of these pDAI tokens, and it makes me wonder, will they collateralize their own tokens? Probably not. Like somebody that's got that big of a holding is really praying for a good payday. Do you see them collateralizing that much money to back their own tokens?
Right.
I don't. Even if you had $1 million, would you put $1 million worth of stable coin, 1.1, if you had to collateralize it at 110%? Would you collateralize your own tokens like that? What would be the point? So, there's there's a few of those things that are kind of playing out too that kind of just, you know, have started to raise the red flags again. And that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Interesting comment by the Beach Whale. What if it was a stress test? PDAI and PWBTC ratio didn't break. Yeah, that stuff is all still clean. I mean, yeah, I it's going to be hard to convince me that there's not something going on. Obviously, there's something going on, but it's just in terms of whether it's bullish, bearish, who's doing what, it remains to be seen. But yeah, this is just an interesting time. And I think we're probably in a fear time and we're going to see things around it move up later on. That's just my opinion, but I'm not, I'm not dying on any hill like a lot of people are, So
Yeah.
any final
And
thoughts?
well, yeah. I'm not talking about people that are making money and selling and things like that. I'm talking about there's a mint going on where they're minting these things for free and then extracting. So I don't have a problem with people selling, making money, extracting value that way. It's when there's, again, something nefarious that's happening that I feel they're just minting them out of thin air, and pulling value from the people that have put up liquidity. That to me is where I get concerned. I don't like to wallet watch and see people that have made money. We all talk about Rackham and what, the value that he's pulled out of this chain, but he's bought it fair and square and he sold it fair and square. So I mean, that's, as much as we may not like it, there's not a whole lot we can do about whales that make money. Where I get concerned is when something's, again, being minted out of nowhere, and just dumped because there's a glitch or some sort of exploit that's happening. So just wanted to clear that up.
Andre Harrison says, sack up, Ewok, take a side for once. Can't be Switzerland in this market. Do you have any response to that?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't.
I
I'm back on the side of not being so sure about pDAI. I'm not going to sell what I hold. Obviously, I've already bought some, but I'm not going to buy any more. And that's my stance.
That's kind of the cool thing. Well, you say that now. If it starts to go up later on, you may be tempted to buy more. But
I might sell some.
We'll
if
see.
it goes higher than what I bought it for. I've been
not buying now. I don't know. Here's the cool thing: you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. I mean, you don't have to have your entire net worth in pDAI. You don't have to, I mean,
I never did. Not even close.
No, not you. I just mean anybody. I mean,
right.
You can, there is, luckily you can do whatever the hell you want. That's the cool thing. So, anyway, the saga will continue. I'm sure it's not going to get boring, one way or the other. So we shall see. But, I think that wraps us up on that topic. So if you guys are here and enjoying the stream, do us a favor, hit the like. Crazy stuff going on with pDAI. We'll continue to look at that, obviously, week in and week out. Before all that happened on Friday, of course, I mean, the cancer that is the SEC just continues to exist, even under the Trump administration. Now, I get it. I mean, I guess there's, attorneys within the SEC and they're just doing their job or whatever. But so we've got a, February 28th, victory for Richard Hart, victory for PulseChain. The judge dismisses the SEC's case on all counts, the fraud, the jurisdiction, the offering, every single thing, the unregistered security. The result was a 100 out of 10, couldn't ask for any better. The SEC didn't dismiss or drop their case. The judge dismissed it. Richard Hart won the case objectively. So the SEC has 20 days that they can file to amend their complaint. I didn't think they were going to. I didn't think you thought that either, Ewok. Nuclear Herb said he didn't think it was that likely simply because, the new administration, they're dropping cases left and right. The judge eviscerated their complaint. I mean, there was nothing to stand on. They just got burnt by her. So what the hell are you even going to amend? Because it's not, you're stuck with your complaint. You're not drafting any new complaint here or anything like that. So they had 20 days. We see a week and a half later, whatever it is, this past Friday, they file for an extension to the 20th to get a bunch of more shit together, basically, and come back with something else. And unfortunately, Judge Carroll grants it here this past Monday. which I don't think is any kind of huge narrative on her part that they have a case. I think it's just kind of, well, I did just, slam dunk you guys and dismiss your entire case. Sure, I'll give you an extension if you want to try to come up with something else. But I imagine that she thinks the likelihood that there's going to be any fruits barren, whatever the hell, of that, updated complaint is going to have anything that impresses her. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Yep.
she gave them time, but it's like, this is probably going to be nothing again. So yeah. Do you want to maybe read over Herb's tweet here?
Sure.
If you can.
I can do that. It says, here's why I'm not really concerned. You can do with this information what you want. It may turn out that I'm right. It may turn out that I'm wrong. I don't have any inside information, so this is just what I see from my own perspective. Number one, the SEC is dropping or settling crypto cases left and right and dropping investigation that they would likely have turned into actual cases. Investigations take zero time to drop, so announcing those are easy. Number two, SEC no longer seems interested in the whole regulation by enforcement tactic they've used for years against crypto. We know this because commissioners have made this point clear more than once. We also know that the government wants to implement new policies and regulations regarding crypto. We know this because commissioners have said it, and the White House appointed a crypto czar with this express task. Given 2 and 3 above, it seems contrary to stated policy, both White House and current SEC, to continue to try and pursue cases where they need to prove whether a digital asset is a security under Howey. This is exactly what would need to be done in RH's case if it were to move forward, because again, no security, no case. The only reason the SEC is claiming Hex, Pulse, PulseX are securities is because of the Howey test. The SEC complaint just got ripped apart entirely on Rule 12b-2.
I didn't realize it was this long. I don't know why. I didn't think it was.
Yeah, it's a good bit.
Yeah,
it's a
never
good
mind.
bit.
What's the? Is it? Does he have a TLDR at the bottom here? Because I didn't realize it was this much stuff.
Not really. Either way, chill. Either it happens or it doesn't. Nothing you can do about it. Let Richard's team handle it. They've proven more than capable so far. Yeah, there isn't. He's not concerned. Obviously, he's coming off as I'm not concerned.
Yeah, I wanted to say. Yeah, he said, I told you all why I don't think the SEC could successfully amend anyway, and I'm sticking to what I said unless they show up with something new. New facts that occurred during the relevant time periods, 2019, 2020 for Hex and 21 and 22 for PulseX. I don't see how they get jurisdiction.
Yep.
Now, if the dismissal had been under Gary's SEC, I think you'd see them try anyway with different SEC leadership, the new policy direction from the White House, Congress, preparing legislation regarding how digital assets are defined, blah, 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 blah. I can't see a reason to continue to pursue this case. Here's the other thing, too, that I saw somebody said that I think makes all the sense in the world. Did they just want to be able to get their foot back in the door here, get back in control, quote unquote, for a minute by, okay, we're waiting on them to draft something new, only so they can then drop it,
Yep.
To look as if they saved
They
face,
had control. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was an option that I had heard somebody mention, is the fact that they wanted to do it so that they could turn around and say, no, we're going to let it go. It almost puts them back in some sort of control. Optically, yes, but really, like you said, the judge eviscerated. That was a very good term to use. Their arguments, and I don't know if they had 100 days if they could make a complaint out of what she did to their arguments. I really don't. There was one person that was kind of tearing apart, because you got to remember this. Matt, is his name Matt, the SEC lawyer?
Oh yeah, I always forget his last name. It's like Gold or Guild or
Gold, Guild, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Somebody was like tweeting at him and saying, "Listen, Doge, look what these guys are doing." And I believe it was Nuclear Herbs that actually brought up a good point: is you don't want this guy getting fired right now, because imagine if they get fired, put him on hold, assign it to a new lawyer who now has to have or will request 90 days, whatever it may be, to catch up to speed, so that they can continue. Let's let this guy have, let's not get him, fired quite yet. So,
Right.
that was a funny point, that we shouldn't be tweeting out anybody calling this guy out. They've done a miserable job so
Yeah, we
far.
want him
Let's
to
let
keep
it
at it.
continue. Yeah, we don't want to give it to somebody that's more competent than him already.
Yeah.
So, let's let it play out the way it is. They've done a great job already. So, yeah, I thought that was kind of funny and a good point to make, that let's not call out as Matthew Guild is what the name
Yeah,
was, I
there
believe.
you go. So what do you think ends up happening with this? So, damn it, they now have until February the 21st to come up with whatever the hell they're going to come
March
up.
or
Or
April
we're both wrong.
21st.
February, what the hell? Yeah, April
April.
the 21st to come
Yeah.
up with whatever they're going to come up with. I think we've got a couple scenarios. I think one could be, like we just stated, that they get the ball back in their court, as weak as it is, and dismiss the case. So there's headlines that say the SEC drop case against Richard Hart, even though there was already a complete ruling against them.
Sure.
Or they come back with something that has like a limp dick addition to whatever they already have, and Carroll's like, get the fuck out of here, and they just wrap it up. I mean, I really think that's about it. I mean, like, I don't know what else they could possibly do. That you said a minute ago, hyperbole anyway. Like, if they had 100 days, could they come? Well, they've had 100. They've already had it. They've had far beyond that. They've had all this thing. And like RH's attorneys argued, they've missed various deadlines so far. They laid out very well why they didn't feel that the extension should be made. She did it anyway. And again, as much as it's frustrating, I do get it from her part, because she just dismissed their entire case. It's not like this went to a judgment portion. I mean, she just said, no, you're wrong on everything. So what do you think the most likely scenarios are?
I think the most likely scenario is they may never have even had any intention of rewriting it, knowing how badly she tore it apart. I think they're just delaying it, honestly. And I think they'll wait up until the deadline, whatever it may be, to realize that they can't. There's not anything they can do. They can't come up with new information based on the current. Remember, they cannot add new complaints. Like, they can't bring something in that hasn't been talked about already. They have to have different kind of proof or evidence or something contrary to what the judge has already decided, and came back to them with her response, which was 30 pages of just teardown. So what I think happens is they wait till the deadline and realize there's not anything they can do, and they say, we're going to choose not to do anything. At that point, I believe the judge would come in and say, all right, here's your dismissal with prejudice, because she would have to, I think, if there's a dismissal and they're not arguing it, you get a dismissal with prejudice, right? Which means can't be brought up again. I think that's the fair thing.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, that is the term for that, but I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that would have to, I don't know that it has to be deemed that way or not. It'd be awesome if it was, because then we know that they can't come back with it ever again. But
well, it's like, what is it? Double jeopardy. You can't be tried twice for the same crime, murder anyway. Is that just
I don't
murder?
think he murdered anybody. We didn't see that yet. I didn't see that on the red notice. So
no, I didn't either. But again, I think that's how it plays out. I think they wait up until the very last time that they can, and then say, we've got nothing. Sorry, Your Honor, for wasting your time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure everybody felt the same way, but like when I saw that they filed for the extension, I was just like, you got to be shitting me, dude. Like, I don't know. They got beat so badly that it's like, why are you doing this? And then as with everything, you start to zoom out, Herbs gives his thoughts on it and stuff. And, you realize, like, what you realize the more you zoom out is that this matters very, very little overall. I mean, for, this ecosystem's success and the prices and stuff like that right now, it just doesn't matter that much. It matters, I think, as far as crypto history and stuff, and is a very significant, judgment for Richard Hart. But in terms of like us right now and people that are just like, when are my bags going to go up? Ethereum's $2,000. You know, we haven't seen money in retail move into the market yet. And that's what's going on. And all the rest of the stuff is short term. And here's the other thing. I was going to say this earlier, and I forgot when we were talking about the pDAI thing, but all these price movements we're seeing lately in regards to the SEC stuff and pDAI yesterday, remember that the liquidity was massively pulled in this ecosystem recently. So any move is going to be drastic.
Yep.
And there are two types of movements, if you're aware. There's up and down. We haven't seen much of the up part, but with these down ones, I mean, you're seeing sharp movements because we,
Yep.
you know, all the ink yields have been slashed, the ink inflation has been slashed, all these things, and the liquidity is far lower. We're going to get into a topic. It'll be a good transition to get into the hex staking because we have the T shares getting more rare yet again. But we've had all this liquidity removed. So these spikes and these short-term action here in the bull market are going to be extreme. So, and you can probably talk about that for a minute, Ewok, just about like past bull markets and all the huge dips you see on your way up, you know?
Well, yeah, the first hex run up, we dipped. Well, it doubled 13 times, essentially. So, but how many dips were in there between 40 and 80%? Well, it was because there wasn't much liquidity. So, yes, it could run easily, and a lot of people were buying it, but there was also a lot of people taking profits, and that's why they dipped so hard, but recovered so quickly. So, yeah, whenever liquidity gets pooled like that, it gets so over amplified with your movements to the up and to the down. It works both ways. It doesn't only work one way. Unfortunately, I wish there was a way to, you know, I guess a bunch of single-sided liquidity to buy up dips would be the only stop to that. And you know, you're looking at again another platform to be able to do that. But you know, there are people out there that will set single sides to help eat up some dips just in case it does, you know, and you know, take a chunk out of it and hopefully protect it a little bit. But yeah, it works both ways, unfortunately.
Yeah, swings both ways. So if you are enjoying the show, do us a favor, hit the like, support Real DeFi, support PulseChain. We appreciate all of you guys being here tonight. We got lots of notable people. Wild SJ appears in the chat. We got SJ here. We have DeFi Gardner. Haven't seen you in a while, so welcome back to you. Tam we had in the chat as well. Shout out to her. And a lot more. So appreciate you guys being here. Hit the like, and yeah, we appreciate it. So we just talked about the removal of liquidity. Hex, we had a whole bunch of those huge, what appeared to be the OA stakes come due the other day, and now they were all restaked for various portions of time. I think a lot of them were only staked for 30 days previously, but they were restaked very large amounts once again, tons and tons of T-shares ranging from 2 to 10 years. It once again cuts the T-share supply massively, which in theory should help Hex and Hex staking. We've talked about this before whenever this was first done and we started to see all this movement. I mean, and this is the thing, like we just talked about the liquidity getting pulled. As much, this goddamn camera, as much as you know, all these things are happening right now that we're seeing prices go down and it's violent movements, it is because of the liquidity. And it's now that we're seeing with the Hex staking, we're seeing the same thing with the T-shares as well. So I want to ask you this angle, because I didn't anyway see this narrative talked about very much the last time there were all these big OA stakes, but this time around, I'm seeing a lot of people talk about, with the conversations we've had around centralized exchange listings with this ecosystem, that if the OA doesn't hold all this supply anymore, which allegedly is like one of the things with Hex anyway, that exchanges are nervous about or whatever it is, even though they list asinine other tokens sometimes. Right. Now with all these huge stakes and staked out in a smart contract that is immutable, that you can't do anything to for years upon years, other than like nuking the stake if you wanted to for some strange reason, which would just reward all of us.
Right.
Are there, you know, a higher likelihood of an exchange listing of Hex because of the tokens not exchanging hands, I guess, but at least not being held by that wallet for now because they're in that smart contract? I don't know. I've seen people talking about that, but I'm wondering what you make of not just the, again, T-share supply shock, but also that idea with the centralized exchanges.
Well, I think it's always been, you know, a good argument. Well, somebody could dump all those tokens on your head, you know, so you've got that. Now that that's out of the window, I just wonder what the next argument will be. Yeah, but right. You know, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be the RH haters out there that that have to come up with something to give that no, we don't want to list it because of whatever reason it may be. But yeah, it also, something else it does is it really considerably lowers the market cap. You know, when you have all these tokens that are burnt, and you're rewarded with T-shares instead, they don't count toward the market cap anymore. So, you know, the odds of it getting back to a top 10 like it was last cycle, it was a top 3. You know, it was right behind
on
Bitcoin,
nomics only, I think.
Ethereum. But the nomics was the only one that was keeping track of it correctly.
I know.
And occasionally there was Yahoo Finance, because they were getting their data from CoinMarketCap unedited, right?
Yeah.
So it did show correctly on Yahoo Finance as well. So yes, there was a point where it got to number 3. It passed Binance, it passed USDC, and boom, it was in 3rd spot, only for a very brief time, but it was there. So for it to get back to that position or whatever, without the amount of OA tokens, you're talking billions now that are gone out of circulation, and that's what would calculate it. You know, it'd be a much tougher time. Maybe they will also start to rank it properly. That's another thing that can, you know, happen easily as well, because again, that argument is out the window. Who knows what the next one will be, but it is favorable. You know, as far as that goes, is, you know, they can't say, well, a founder has a whole bunch. Well, I mean, we know it's the case with 95% of cryptos out there. There is a founder holding, they just call it something different. So
yes. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, usually with exchanges or other detractors that are just not buying into the ecosystem, there is always going to be some reason why. You know,
yeah,
it'll be a long con 20 years down the
sure.
road, obviously, to them. So it is bullish, though. I mean, it's cool to see the stakes get restaked out like that and everything that we've seen with the supply. So all good stuff for sure. And yeah, we'll see it continue. Unless you have anything else on that, I was thinking we got a few kind of light things we could go over to. Oh, curious of your comments here. So DeFi Gardener, this is an interesting guy. So he used to comment on our channel quite frequently. I checked his channel out. He used to do some videos about like Solana memes and stuff like that. I know they're not looking fantastic right now, but hey, neither is anything. So,
yeah.
but he says PulseX is the only coin, and he's been in here kind of arguing with people about pDAI, and he's not a fan of pDAI, but he says PulseX is the only coin worth a damn. Buy a bag and don't even look at it until ETH is 5K. Just step away from crypto. I disagree with the first part of your statement, but I think the rest of the advice isn't too shabby, honestly.
Yeah. I like the second half of it as well.
And honestly, that's probably been the token I've been wanting to acquire the most over the last year and a half, though. So I am with you. Your sentiment. This is a Frank Molina tweet right here.
Yep.
Minus the only one worth a damn. Although that's pretty much the only one he buys. So I'm with you, man. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad you realized that, DeFi Gardener. Like some people, I think within, you know, not that you're not within the community, but I know you've dabbled in other stuff too. But a lot of people that just have silo vision and PulseChain and stuff, just they think that nothing else in crypto, or that everything else in crypto is like just mooning. You know, everything else is just out there, you know, at all new all-time highs while we're down here. And I get it. Like this is a much bumpier ride. Like this is a very tough ride because we don't have the VCs. We don't have like other people backing us and stuff. There's just crazy, you know, you don't have the favors of the influencers. You're not on coin ranking sites. Like there's all these different things. And that is part of what comes with like kind of a bootstrapped organic ecosystem, is that the downtimes can look really tough because there's no safety net. But that also means that the uptimes are infinitely better than what's going to happen in these other ones. Because while we do have whales that are selling left and right down here, thankfully, you don't have wallets that you're totally unaware of that are people that bought, you know, like Pulse is pretty much at all-time lows right now. If you buy Pulse right now, you bought the lowest Pulse price in history. Okay. It's not as if there's all these shadowy figures, shadowy super coders. What was that? Remember that a couple years ago? Is that Pocahontas thing? I don't know. One of those people. But maybe it was Hillary Clinton. I don't know. but you don't have all those people that like. There's nobody that bought Pulse at 4 zeros and a 1 or something like that. It's not out there. Like you can buy the low right now. It'll probably go lower again, sure. But as far as other people that are out there, there's nobody that bought it at cheaper prices. So I don't know if you have anything. I think some of his advice is pretty good here.
Yeah, I mean, I love the advice to just DCA and don't even look until ETH is 5K. Like, I mean, I think that with just about any token that you are in favor, NJ Dub said Hex is cool too. So I feel that way about it. PulseX like it a lot. Pulse, I like it too. And they're all very, very heavily bonded. So, when one or two of them run, they're all going to run. There's some other cool projects out there, but yeah, I completely agree with his sentiment about don't look back until ETH is up there, and who knows? There is what they call a third cycle curse, and this is it for ETH. Unfortunately,
I think that's just Sami is they. I think he's the one that coined. I don't know. I've heard other people said it before.
I've heard of it before.
Okay,
I've heard of it before. There was Dash was another one I think that made it to its third cycle and really had a hard time. So, ETH isn't the only one that's made it that long. There are some other older coins that are still out there that had a rough third cycle. So
yeah,
it is a real thing.
Well, and even if it's not a third cycle curse, it's diminishing gains over time. I mean, that's a fact of life, Red Bull here, yeah, any core coins are worth a buy. EHEX, for instance, if it doesn't, I think, do a 2x, it's a fail. Cheap to buy. We're in a great position. People don't realize. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. And the other thing with EHEX is, that ratio to Hex, obviously. We had the Richard Hart death tweet, back whenever that was. And I think this tweet today about pDAI is very similar. That was something I didn't bring up earlier, but we had that, and we see the Hex recover, and I think it'll continue to recover against Hex.
I think 2x is being extremely generous. I think if it doesn't do a 50x, something's wrong, which I think that's quite a possibility at point, what is it, 0.00021
right now.
Yeah. So even I think it could get to 10 cents if things start popping off that way. What is that? That's about a 50x, I believe. So
I mean, I would take at this point, I think we're all pretty goddamn beaten and battered. I would take half that, honestly, but yeah.
Well, I think it can easily get to 10 cents if PHEX is going to do what I believe it will.
Okay. We shall see. But yeah, I while it hasn't been like a major purchase of mine, I've definitely still DCA'd here and there into EHEX. So I think it's worth it. Yeah, let's see here. We can finish off with DeFi Gardener, exactly. And this is the most attractive thing about PulseX. We know PulseX is deflating, though. That's what makes it superior. I mean, yeah, and Richard has tweeted about that. Over Christmas, he tweeted about it a whole bunch. I think if you're going to read the tea leaves of Richard Hart, his PulseX tweets are probably the tea leaves to read the most, whatever the hell reading tea leaves even means. All right. I'm enjoying the chat here. We're getting some good stuff. Digital money markets. I heard rumors MEXC is still in play to resist relist. I think he means
relist. Yeah.
It was in that obscure crypto chat. I don't know what obscure crypto chat is, but I know that Panos, we just talked about Panos last week. He had that interview with Corey Costa, which was fantastic. And yeah, it sounds like dialogue is still open with MEXC. It's just that they wanted money again.
Well, now listen, hang on, correct yourself there. Sorry. They don't want money. They want the account reloaded with liquidity. Because so it wasn't payment. Like the payment already exists. They're already listed. The integration has already been done. It's still there. They can flip a switch tomorrow and it's back on. What they wanted was the account for the liquidity to be put there. They want essentially 60 grand, 30 grand of Pulse and 30 grand of Tether. I think it was that's one of the things that they use the most to trade. So it's not payment. The account that controls that would belong to whoever adds it. So it's not even really payment. It's just liquidity to play with.
Yeah, good point. And yeah, the fee or whatever had already been paid. It's just
Yes.
liquidity to get it
Yep.
listed again. So, and we visited this last week, but I mean, everybody jumped down their throats because they don't understand the whole thing about exchange listings, and and me included. I mean, I didn't know how everything works, but you see them asking for more money when they've already like delisted, and it's like, what the hell are you talking about? And it's like they need more liquidity for it. And the other thing is, this is what we said last week: exchanges. It's not so much, I think we probably paint this narrative, and maybe it's somewhat true, but that they're all out there like, we don't like Richard Hart, we don't like the community, and maybe that is part of it, but also they're interested in like what's doing tons of volume, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a chicken and egg thing because a lot of these shitty meme coins that people are stupidly buying and getting rugged on, end up getting listed because people are interested in them. And you got Portnoy's like fifth greed token or whatever the hell it is, in which I don't know how anybody ever would have bought, but and you've got that stuff getting listed. So it's it's unfortunate. I mean, it's kind of that whole thing like, what are you going to do? Bitch at the market? The market's buying stupid meme coins, not even good meme coins, and they're getting listed. So
it's big name people that have a following that all they got to do is make one tweet and boom, they get the and the funny thing is these exchanges are purchasing off the market right away. They're buying their own liquidity because they know it's worthwhile for them to spend the 50 grand or whatever it may be, knowing that they'll make $2 million in fees. It's an investment for them. They're not willing to do that with other things, even though there's a huge following of Richard Hart people. How much liquidity after his preaching that DeFi is really the way to do it? There's not going to be a lot of trading. It's mostly buying and extracting from their, you buy and you pull it off their exchange. And I think that's one of the things that scares people off. So,
yeah. Let me see. Okay, let's go to this guy. We'll do a couple more chats, and then we'll wrap up here. So this is pretty general, but Auntie D says, "Hey, love the channel. Quick question: what are your thoughts on Ink?" Pretty general question there, but it is interesting because we've seen a lot of different things happen with Ink over the last few weeks. We saw the inflation get cut 4 or 5 different times or something like that. The price is still down at $1.50 because the ecosystem's down. We have seen the PulseX yield farms slashed, so they're basically not worth doing whatsoever right now, or you're going to definitely accrue a impermanent loss. But obviously things are on the horizon for those farms, for Ink. And what do you think, Ewok? And again, maybe Auntie D, you could expand specifically on there's something you want to know, but what do you? We've both yield farmed. We've done the PulseX farm and acquired it that way. I've occasionally DCA'd into it on the market, but I usually just want to buy like my PulseX bags and stuff like that so much that I'm not buying Ink. And you can farm it, so why would I buy it? So I don't know. What do you think, Ewok?
Yeah, it's not something that I would have bought when I was earning what I was earning by just providing liquidity, but because it is tied to a lot of the pairs, again, this is going to be a very static movement of everything, because of the liquidity pairs, because of the bonding, you're going to see it run up too. And because it's already at $1.50, it's going to run what looks to be harder, I think. How high can it go? Well, I believe it was $80 at its high. Roughly $88 or something like that. It could easily get that high again because people aren't earning it. There is no yield farming that's producing anything unless you're a huge whale. And I think that's why it was done, because those guys were farming it and just dumping permadump, and that had to get stopped. So in order for things to rise, you've got to decrease the inflation of it. Back to pDAI, you can't have that price go up like that naturally if the demand slows down. So again, I think Ink is going to do just fine. Not something I would buy. I think it's going to be very reflexive to everything else that moves up. But I think it's going to be fine if you hold some. I don't know that I would go out and spend a bunch of money on it when there's other tokens that could have a far better Xing power. Xing power. You're going to get more X's out of other things than you would Ink, but Ink's going to probably do fine if you're holding some.
And following up on that, Digital Money Market says, will the PulseX farms eventually add back some of the APRs down the road? I think 100% certainly. I think it's just waiting for, the liquidity was removed. So if Ethereum ever goes up, more than a couple percent in a month or something like that, then the bull market takes off. There's an altcoin market. You want to be able to move up more quickly and with less liquidity, because there was a lot of people in those yield farms because they were rewarding pretty handsomely. I mean, even when we were making EWOC 10% or something like that, I mean, we were up at 20%, a year prior, but when we were down at even 10%, I mean, like the price of ink and everything, it was still absolutely worth doing. I mean, and it depends on when you got in and when you got out. I know you did accrue a little bit of impermanent loss, but depending on when you got in and various different things, I mean, you were doing pretty well. And then if you wanted to DCA the ink back into the PulseX that you lost, or DCA your new money just straight into PulseX, you're getting a little bit of impermanent loss, but you're also gaining it back and getting those tokens and getting Pulse back. So, yeah.
Well, the one thing that I figured out, I thought there was more impermanent loss than there really was, but because it was the PulseX pair, I ended up with a lot more Pulse.
Right.
And after it was said and done with, I sold back the Pulse for the PulseX that I got offsides with, and got back to really where I had started and made all that ink on top of it. So, and along the way, I had traded some of the ink that I was earning for other little things that I wanted to dabble with. So yeah, I mean, I didn't end up with hardly any impermanent loss. So
yeah,
it worked out well.
And that's something that we'll revisit, when those do get relisted. And here's the thing, I don't think we're going to have just the pools that we saw before. I think we're going to have a lot more pools when we get further down the road. So definitely look out for that. Yeah. Well, this has been an awesome show. Really active chat. Appreciate all you guys being here. DeFi Gardner, Digital Money Markets, Yellowtail, Anti-D, Red Bull, PP. Who else? We had Wild SJ here. We had Tam. We had, were there any other streaming type people?
We had a very big donation from DJN Moonboy. We can't forget about him. He's here every week. So
my ex-wife was here, the Beached Whale. We had Stubbs. We had Andre Harrison. Wall-to-Wall TV was here. I didn't read what he said, and I'm not going to. But yeah, we had a lot of good people here. So Valiant Low-Key.
Crypto Stylist was here. She popped in and said,
"Oh, really? I didn't see that." Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, welcome in, everybody. We had a couple hundred watching at once. So do us a favor. Hit the like button to help support Real DeFi. Boost this in the algorithm. Richard made a tweet today that we didn't really get to, but about trying to, prices are down, go do work, which I don't know how many people want to hear at this point. Most people are, victim mentality and upset that the prices are where they're at and stuff like that. But, we're going to be here talking about DeFi in general. And there you go. This ecosystem until, it goes to zero or goes to Valhalla. I mean, one way or the other. So, wall-to-wall TV, respect for not banning me. You're welcome, man. Appreciate all you guys being here. We do the show every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will see you next week. Enjoy the drama of the markets. I think we might be on the verge of a little bit of a move up with this bullish news from the Fed and all this other stuff. So thank you all for Crypto EWOC. This is Broke Boy Crypto on the Creed of Crypto. See you guys. Bum 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 bum.